The Red Sox did indeed win a series against an AL East opponent. Maybe too little too late at this point, as Sunday highlighted a lot of their issues that have been happening all season.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I am your host, NESN's Lauren Willand. Alongside me, as always, Massachusetts Pirates team insider and WooSox PA, Jake Iggy Ignaszewski. The Red Sox won a series. That is the good news. The bad news is that it's August 28th, and it's probably a little too late for this. But there were some good things to take away. We will recap the weekend series. We're going to look at some roster moves the Red Sox made Sunday night. And we're going to talk about Jaren Duran because he was also part of those roster moves over the weekend. And we're going to talk about this Red Sox team as a whole, right? This is the Locked On Red Sox podcast. But the Red Sox won the series. They started off really, really strong. They won Friday 9-8. They won Saturday 5-1. So you're thinking there's a lot of momentum going into Sunday. But there was not. Not at all. Every issue the Red Sox have faced all season was highlighted Sunday. The bullpen, the offense, they lost 12-4. And overall, just a very ugly game. I don't want to, maybe unwatchable is too mean, but that game was really, really ugly.
It's really crazy how awful the bullpen has performed and really has imploded over the last month or so. Luckily, we saw incredible start by Rich Hill.
Chris Sale, oh man.
By Rich Hill, just looking the best that we've seen him all season. But, really looking at, some main guys who have really struggled during the second half mightily. Ryan Brazier, Sawamura, as well as Austin Davis, all pretty much imploded. And, we saw it in each of the games. And, even on Saturday, on Friday, 9-8, Brazier imploded for 4 earned runs. I mean, that's crazy. You really never know how sure a win is, no matter how big the lead is. And that's been an issue all throughout this season.
It has been. And Ryan Brazier, on his 35th birthday, you think that he's going to want to turn in a nice performance. He's going to want to turn in something good for himself, for the fans. It was really ugly. He gave up 3 hits, 4 earned runs, and a walk. It was bad. I mean, the Red Sox were lucky they got those runs, but they did. They're lucky the offense was able to pull through. But you should not need 9 runs to beat a baseball team, in my opinion. I feel like the Red Sox have needed to put together all these runs so many times because their bullpen has been an issue. And while they weren't the biggest issue in the first half of the season, or the first month of the season, I should say, we've known they're going to be an issue because the starters also have not been able to stay healthy and be able to go longer into games in the first half. So you tax the bullpen, a bullpen that's already not reliable. And then you have all the injuries on top of that. And it's to the guys who were reliable, the Matt Stroms that were left out or on the injured list for a long time. But like you mentioned, there were Rich Hill. He looked incredible on Saturday, and he had 11 strikeouts. That's a season high. He was working really, really fast. The Boston Globe's Julian McWilliams had this tweet that really stuck out to me that said that time was called and Rich Hill just didn't care. He would throw the pitch anyway. I think he had 6 or 7 pitches that didn't count because of time being called. And maybe that was just to keep Rich Hill in his rhythm because he knew it was working. But he was working quick. He was effective. He was really, really good. That's the best we've seen him all season. And he gave you 7 innings as well, which was much, much needed for that bullpen. And on Sunday, he was talking to the NESN Red Sox booth, and it almost sounded like he was contemplating retiring, and then he found like something that kind of worked for him. And he's 42. I mean, he's probably going to retire sooner rather than later. And he said that he'd like to come back in 2023, maybe in the second half of the season, because he's got kids and he wants to do these events. But I wonder if he continues to pitch the way he did Saturday. He's only got a few more starts left in the season, probably 5 or 6 starts. But if he continues to pitch that way, it makes you wonder if whatever he changed going into Saturday's game, if that keeps working for him, maybe he'll want to think about coming back for a year, whether that's for the Red Sox or someone else. I'll take that version of Rich Hill every single day of the week.
I am really curious to see what change he did make. Most of the time, it's either with mechanics or you figure out something with a pitch. But I mean, we've seen his curveball, 68 miles per hour, just be so effective throughout the season, especially when he's able to spot it. But when he's not able to spot it, we see guys clobber it, especially when they're playing at Fenway. But pitching 95 pitches and 71 of those 95 being strikes. I mean, with how effective he was, and as you mentioned, working very quickly. It was so impressive. Also 11 strikeouts. I believe it's career high for him this season. And, really looking at this Rays series, when you looked at the 3-game slate of the pitchers and you saw, Nick Pivetta, Michael Wacha, and Rich Hill, you sort of thought in your mind, Pivetta and Michael Wacha are probably going to be the standout starters to give you quality innings. And that really wasn't the case. We saw Nick Pivetta allow 5 earned runs and Michael Wacha allow 4. And Rich Hill coming out here throwing a 3-hitter in 7 innings. Pretty crazy. And only walked 1 guy as well. With how effective his control was, it would be really cool to see him come back for year 33 or year 43.
Year 33.
But I don't want him back in a Red Sox uniform as much as I think it's been great to see him return. The Red Sox rotation needs a lot more consistency next season. But, there's a lot of different moves and a lot of different directions that they could go.
There is. And I think that finding a true number 1 starter should be your priority for the rotation. I still think your bullpen is your number 1 priority outside of Bogarts. I think that needs to be the number 1. But when you're looking at something as a whole, like the rotation, the bullpen, the offense, I think you need to prioritize that bullpen, but also get that number 1 true starter. Michael Wacha has been a treat this year. Even though he was injured and was on the IL for a little while, he is quietly just putting together a really strong season for the Red Sox. And as much as I love Rich Hill, I agree with you. I would love to see him back in a Red Sox uniform, but I would not love to see him back. But I'd like to, but if he doesn't come back, I'm not going to be sad about it. It's great to see him pitch as long as he has. It's great to see him still be effective in certain situations, but you need to go into 2023 and that offseason with your priorities straight, because you cannot be bringing back people like Rich Hill. No offense to Rich Hill, but you have other major areas of concern. As good as he pitched Sunday and as good as Michael Wacha was, Michael Wacha and Rich Hill are not true number 1 starters.
I completely agree. And, really looking at what we saw throughout this series, a few guys that you really got to applaud for, their great play. Kike Hernandez, we saw on Friday have a 3-hit game. Kevin Plawecki, started to show a tiny bit of a glimpse of figuring it out, but, the rest of the game struggled a little bit, but he was also 3 for 4 in the 9-8 win. And then, continuing to have guys come back. It was nice to see Trevor Story back on the field finally. We're going to talk a little bit more about the move that came from that with Jaren Duran being optioned, but it was great to see Trevor Story be in that lineup and really beef it up, and hopefully he can sort of find that magic that we saw him have back in May. But another guy who's been really playing well, it's mainly only been working for the long ball. He's still striking out a lot. Is Franchy Cordero. He's showing off that power. We also saw Heidi Whitney back at Fenway Park almost get hit by the ball. I thought that was pretty funny, and I do not understand whatsoever why they have them wear, those huge earmuffs. I understand it's the Apple, I understand Apple sponsors it and everything like that, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. I always laugh when I see those huge headphones, but it's been nice to see Franchy Cordero starting to figure it out back at the plate as well. And hopefully he can, find ways to get on base other than that and produce other than that.
I was going to say, how much of an emotional roller coaster is he bringing fans on this season? Because he mashes the ball in Worcester. He has a lot of success in Worcester. He gets called up. He hits towering home runs. We know that power is there, but then he can't hit in crucial situations. He can't hit ground balls. He can't hit singles, bloop singles. He's hitting towering home runs. So people understandably get mad at him, but then it's like, oh, okay, brought the game within a run the other day because he hit 400-foot home run. Like, what an emotional roller coaster he has had fans on probably since last year.
Seriously, I remember when he first got called up this most recent time, or no, the time before that, before he got sent down, and it was incredible in Worcester. Fans were like, "Franchy's back!" You know, we're seeing a whole new Franchy Cordero. You know, he's being patient at the plate. He's finding ways to get on base, and then I think he had a stretch where he was like 0 for 15 with like 13 strikeouts or something like that. I don't know if I got the. It was something like that, but. He just needs to continue to find ways to be patient up at the plate with Major League pitching, because even when we saw him down in Worcester, he was one of the most patient in one of the guys where when you saw him step into the plate, he knew exactly where the strike zone was, and even if there was pitches like right on the zone, or right on the edge of the plate, he would still get sort of close to wanting to swing, but he just thought it was too close. But he just needs to find ways to be able to be patient and be a lot more disciplined hitter in the major league level.
And hopefully that will come in time, but hopefully we stop seeing him at first base sooner rather than later. But you did say that Trevor Story returned. It was great to see him back in the lineup after months on the IL with a hairline fracture in his wrist. So that was really good to see. But you also mentioned some moves that were made because of the Story move, and we're going to talk about that in our second segment of the Locked On Red Sox right after Jake talks to you about why you should be driving sober.
Are you one of those people that thinks it's okay to drive stoned? Well, that's the worst that can happen. You end up driving below the speed limit. It's not a big deal, right? Wrong. The truth is your reaction time slows way down when you're high, and not only put yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI.
So, as we mentioned in the first segment, Trevor Story was he was not optioned. He was activated from the IL, but who was optioned was Jaren Duran. And he's been a hot topic for the last couple months because of his inability to take accountability for his play on the field, his defense, and just kind of being like, well, until you play, then shut up. And he's been starting to kind of get on the nerves of fans because he had all this hype around him. And the Boston Globe's P-Day put out a great article on Saturday night or Sunday that really took us into the optioning of Duran. And it's one thing that kind of stuck out to me was that pitchers really figured out what he cannot hit, but what he'll swing at. And that's something he really needs to work on and work on his swing, because there's definitely raw talent there. He's definitely a very athletic person, and he definitely could be a valuable major leaguer. Whether that's with the Red Sox, that remains to be seen. But he was optioned to AAA Worcester. He was slashing 220, 283, 365, and 219 plate appearances. And Alex Cora said that they want Duran to focus less on power and more on getting on base and improving defensively. Especially improving defensively, I think everyone can agree on that. Stop fighting with fans in the crowd, especially teams that you don't play very often. Take accountability for your bad defense. And yes, get on base. You have the speed. So focus on getting that ball in play. Focus on getting on base, because he is electric on the base path solely because of his speed, but he just needs to be an all-around better player.
And we saw him come up this most recent time, and fans were getting so excited. We felt like we saw a different type of Duran at the plate. And as you mentioned, pitchers really started to figure him out. And that's what happens when you're up in the majors for a long enough time, and they're able to watch enough film on you. And we really saw him struggle a lot, especially in the past few weeks, and now batting 220. And the speed is great, but also it seems like every single night I'm seeing a tweet, another missed ball or misread ball by Jaren Duran. But the one thing that makes me think is, especially with September call-ups coming very soon, literally in the next 3 to 4 days, the WooSox have one more month. And are you going to keep him down for a full 30 days, or
yes,
do you see them potentially calling him up in the final 2 weeks of the season? You know what I mean? Because the Red Sox season honestly could be over the next month as well too. It's pretty crazy to even be saying that, but I think, in my opinion, as you mentioned, Jaren Duran needs as much time in AAA to really figure this out. And I think that it should also be a reality check for him that, not only your lack of play, your lack of maturity, and your lack of being able to be a professional baseball player at the major league level for one of the most respected franchises in the entire league, of one of the most storied sports in the entire world, you need to really take this seriously. And I don't think he is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. He needs to be more mature, well-rounded kind of player. And with the September call-ups, I think you leave him down there. And I hate being like, oh, teach him a lesson, but teach this kid a lesson. You're not getting called back up. And the Red Sox, 99% are probably not making the postseason. Don't bother to bring him up. Bring up the kids you want to see. Bring up the Connor Wongs, the Tristan Casses, the Ryan Fitzgeralds, to see what you have in these guys. Obviously, you know what you have in Tristan Cassis, but to see if these people are going to work out, if they're going to be some big part of your future, or if they're just going to be trade chips to bring in someone else. But I don't think Jaren Duran should get another shot at MLB this year. I think you leave him down in Worcester for the last 12 games, whatever is left, and go into the offseason, let him get himself right. And if by spring training comes and he's still not like that, that's a whole nother issue that you'll have to deal with when that time comes. But I hope we've seen the last of Jaren Duran in a Red Sox uniform in 2022. I don't know about you, but that's just how I feel.
I think so as well. But that's the biggest question mark for me is, I'm not saying that the Red Sox need to have another outfielder come up. Maybe we could see another position player, and maybe Christian Arroyo or Kike Hernandez now obviously will have the ability to be able to play outfield. But who do you think, we can do this in a whole nother episode, but like, especially, for outfielders, like being called up for September call-ups. I mean, Abraham Almonte has been hitting the cover off the ball ever since they traded for him. But, like really looking at it, only Jalen Davis and Jarren Duran are on the 40-man roster. That's just the one thing that comes to my mind when you see Jarren Duran be sent down.
Right. And I know they have to take all this into consideration when they do the September call-ups, but I think you have to call up people you haven't called up, either in a while or period. And just, like I said, see what you have in them. Ryan Fitzgerald can play every single freaking position. So you can just stick him anywhere, outfield. I think the only position he hasn't played besides pitcher is catcher. So he's been all around the field, and he's been having a lot of fun in Worcester, became a fan favorite in spring training. And like I said, at this point, you don't have anything else left to lose. You're so far out of the wild card where it's still reachable technically, mathematically, but you have to start really preparing for 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, I think so as well. And we saw them really start to do that with some of the moves that they made this afternoon. One of the most corresponding ones that we saw after this most recent game, Austin Davis being designated for assignment. Chad Jennings did a great job of really showcasing the downward spiral that we saw of Austin Davis. And, before I read those stats, I honestly really don't think that, looking at the Michael Chavis trade, I don't think it was a loss. I don't think the Red Sox would have used Michael Chavis this season, next season, for the future. And I think Austin Davis was a great addition last season, even though, he didn't make these incredible, huge plays in the playoffs. Like, the Red Sox got a great bullpen arm there who was semi-reliable, but, really looking at this past season, held a 2.55 ERA through July 8th. And then since that time, got absolutely rocked, ERA of 11.12. Pretty crazy. And then you could say the same thing about Sawamura, who also got designated for assignment. But Lauren, what was your reaction when you first saw both of these moves happen?
Not surprised at all. I just think that Austin Davis has, you read the numbers. He's really struggled for the last month and a half. And Sawamura, we have seen him all season just not be a reliable bullpen arm. Yeah. And he was sent down briefly to Worcester, but then injury after injury, he's back up and now just DFA him. And it's unfortunate to see because you never want to see anybody fail. But at some point, they need to do what's best for the team. They need to, like I mentioned earlier, really look toward the future. But I was surprised when I saw Austin Davis and I'm like, well, why not Sawamura? Then a few hours later, it's Sawamura. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. But I don't think it's surprising. I don't think anybody is going to be mad about either of those moves. I think Red Sox fans now are just kind of like accepting that, not that the season is over, but that the season will be over at the end of October and that there's not going to be baseball in November. There's not going to be postseason baseball for the Red Sox this year. but I think they're accepting that. And the more moves that you see, these DFA moves, I feel like that's the Red Sox kind of accepting too. Like, all right, let's just get these guys out of here, see what we have in the farm system, and just, as Bill Belichick says, we're on to 2023.
The biggest questions are who are the corresponding ones? I think one of the guys is somebody who I brought up last week, Frank Herman. I think he's been pitching exceptionally all throughout this past season, and there aren't really any glaring guys on the their pitching staff who are currently on the 40-man roster. Darwinson Hernandez, Kaleb Ort, two guys who you've already seen and you know what they're going to give you. I don't think that's going to happen. Tyler Danish, we just saw him get reinstated from the 15-day IL, got sent right down. So some guys that are on my mind, Frank Herman, Zach Kelly, Andrew Politi. I think those are three guys that you could potentially see. Regarding Zach Kelly, he posted on Instagram a day or so ago that he's having a kid. So, that's probably happening in the next week or so. So he might not be ready for September 1st. So, we could probably see a guy like Andrew Politi, Frank Herman. But those are just the biggest question marks is, what are those corresponding moves that you're going to have to make on that specific 40-man roster to be able to make that happen?
Yeah, and we'll find out, soon enough. We will get those answers sooner rather than later. They start a series with the Twins on Monday. I'm pretty sure it's Twins. I should have checked that, but I'm pretty sure it's Twins on Monday. Yep. And the rest of the season doesn't get easier for the Red Sox. They're still playing tough opponents. You still want to end this season on a positive note. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to see front of the pod, Zach Kelly, Frank Herman's been incredible in Worcester, and I would love to see what he has. I don't think he's major league ready, but I think he will be eventually. And it'd be nice to just kind of see what the Red Sox have in him. And speaking of pitching, the Red Sox promoted Brian Mata to Worcester. He's had a heck of a road already, and I'm really excited to see him bounce back. And I'm excited to see what he can bring to Worcester. I know the season's almost over, but there's a lot of hype around him too. So I'm really excited to see him get promoted and see what he can do for Worcester down the stretch of their last few games here.
Me too. I think as well, a component that not a lot of people really think about, with guys getting called up to Worcester is that experience that you have of people like a Josh Winkowski who went from, Worcester to the majors this year and has that failure sort of experience and is really able to help Mata understand, get mentally prepared. You could also say that about a few other guys who are currently in the rotation and on the WooSox's pitching staff. But one thing that, I've noticed ever since working there is they have one of the best bullpens in the entire league, which is really impressive with, how much they've been able to build up the pitching depth. Ever since Chaim Bloom came along, we'd never really saw homegrown pitching or even pitching really or effective pitching coming from the farm system. So it's nice to be able to have some sort of intrigue or guys to be able to talk about and sort of get excited about. And especially for some guys, Frank Herman, you got from the Yankees, you know what I mean? Some of these other guys, Victor Santos, he's only 22 years old. He's one of the youngest guys in AAA. We got him for Chatham. He was a career AAA guy. So, you never really know what some of these guys could be able to do. But as we said throughout this pod, start planning for the future, start figuring out some guys that are going to be able to help you in 2023 and beyond.
And some of our listeners tend to agree with us. Jake put out on our Locked On Red Sox Twitter account just kind of, should the Red Sox start planning for next season or should they keep trying to make the playoffs? And Sean said he's bring up a few guys and hope for the best. Bring up a few young guys and hope for the best. I think that's kind of our mindset too. And then William Davis said, bring up some guys, let them get in some big league experience, but start looking at next season. For starters, they need to make sure they have guys to build around, like signing Xander and Rafi to long-term deals ASAP. I think that, like we said, the postseason still technically is within reach, but you're so far out of it and there's not enough time in the season to just all of a sudden do a 180. I mean, anything's possible, but you need to really just start seeing what you have for 2023 and beyond.
Yeah. I'm going to be really upset if they DFA Brian Brazier, because I just bought you a jersey of him. I'm going to be pissed.
Burn it.
Am I going to have to return it or what's going on?
Just burn it. No, don't
seriously. Why is Ryan Brazier still on the, I'm just waiting for that DFA. I understand, in Sunday's game, he pitched an inning, only allowed 2 hits, but we just said he allowed 4 earned runs on Friday. I think that move is coming very soon. Maybe like I mentioned, they're waiting for Zach Kelly, but like who knows? Who knows exactly what's happening behind the scenes? But we could really see the Red Sox semi-clean house the DFAs on some guys that aren't going to be on the team in the future.
Yeah, we could, and we could see those moves. Probably the second we stop the recording, they'll make some sort of move. Always, without a doubt, it always happens. And this goes with any other pod that I've hosted. Anything, we stop, and it's like, oh, they made a move. It's like, okay, cool. But going into our third segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast, we will end this show as we always do on the Mental Health Minute. So I went to the Kenny Chesney concert on Saturday. I bought these tickets in 2019. I was so excited. And the concert itself was amazing. Loved it. Loved every second of it. But the crowd experience was so awful. And I know what I'm getting into. Okay, I've gone to Gillette for over 20 years. I've gone to see Kenny Chesney for 10 years. I know what the Gillette crowd is. I have never seen people be this rude, be this disrespectful to other fans who are there, to the people working there, just people in general. I don't know if COVID has just made these people so feral that they don't know how to act anymore in public, but we waited 3 years for this show, right? It was 4 years ago. Kenny was the last time he was at Gillette. He purposely ends his tour at Gillette Stadium. He does 2 shows there. He loves Gillette. He loves Foxborough. He loves the Patriots organization. Foxborough means so much to him. We're all there for the same reason. And the amount of things that I saw last night, I was like, this is miserable. People are so mad. And it's just a gentle reminder to be kind. It is so easy. I know that COVID, it had hurt a lot of people physically, mentally, emotionally. I know we lived through COVID too. We're still living through COVID, but you need to be kind to people. We waited so long for the show. We're all there for the same reason. Mm-hmm. Be kind. It is so easy to just let people cut through you, not cut you in line, just cut through so they can get to their seats. It is so easy to not tell someone to go bleep themselves because they bumped you by mistake. Just be kind. We're there to enjoy music, not to fight each other.
Yeah, my mom had the same exact experience, and it's really sad sometimes to see people that like to project sort of their frustrations on what's going on in their life through other people. It's really unfortunate to see that, and especially for an event that should be everybody just celebrating a great artist with their great music. That's what it should all be about. And also, like something else I want to bring up is, just like taking advantage of every opportunity that you really have, like whether it's like hanging out with friends, going and see family. That's something that like I've really been trying to make important, not only throughout this summer, but in the last like few months, is any opportunity that I have to be able to go hang with friends, go do something fun, or even see some family. I just try and take advantage of every single opportunity I have. And, obviously it's great to be able to spend time by yourself, be able to have some of that self-care time, but at the same time as well, like, for people like you and I who work a lot, like being able to find those times where you're able to, go and make memories that you're going to remember for a lifetime. That's just so important. I have some people in my life that think that tomorrow they'd just be able to hang out with you or whatever, just put it off. But people remember that stuff. People remember when you show up. So just do everything you can to be able to show people that you care, especially in some of those moments where it's really important.
100%, especially you're at the start of your career. I know how hard you work, and I know what this business can do to people. I know how draining it can be. I know the hours are long, but the second that you have the opportunity to hang out with friends, like whenever we're trying to coordinate a time to record and you're like, oh, I'm hanging out with friends today, or like, oh, I'm seeing a friend today, nothing makes me happier. I'm like, good. Like take advantage of your days off, take advantage of the time, and see the people who mean a lot to you. Because as you get older, and not to sound like an old person, but as you get older, it gets harder to see your friends. It gets harder to make these plans. Like you're making plans weeks in advance just to see your friends for a few hours. And it gets harder, but you learn to cherish those times a lot more when you're able to spend time with your friends, your family, whoever. Like you need to make time for who's important to you and who means a lot to you at the end of the day.
Couldn't agree more.
So that will do it for Monday's episode of Locked On Red Sox. Rate, review, and subscribe to Locked On Red Sox right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods is where you can find us. Find us on Twitter as well at LO_Red Sox, Jake at Jake Iggy, and then you can find me at Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. This just in, Chad Jennings said Zach Kelly and Kaleb Ort are being added to the Red Sox bullpen. Can't get us this time. We have not hit stop recording. So we did it. We got through an episode. I'm so excited. So Zach Kelly, Kaleb Ort are being added to the Red Sox bullpen per a source, per Chad Jennings. So we'll talk about that. If they play Monday, if they pitch Monday, we'll certainly be able to see what they can bring. And congrats to Zach Kelly on having a baby very, very soon. But now that you've made Locked On Red Sox your first listen, head on over to Locked On MLB to make it listen number 2. Friend of the pod, friend of ours, Paul Francis Sullivan, just call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on major leagues, both past and present, using his humor, using his knowledge, using his insight. It is a must listen. You don't want to miss an episode. And we will be back on Tuesday. We'll see you soon. As always, let's go Red Sox.